Welcome home. We are WNST. Towson, Baltimore. Baltimore Positive. We are positively not in the studio today. We're doing a Maryland Crab Cake Tour. We are out here, and I'm trying to think of the last time I did a broadcast from Owings Mills. We used to do the show over at the Buffalo Wild Wings once in a while on Monday nights, but it's been a while. We are at Mama's on the Half Shell. We're here at Foundry Row. The kids call it that. I call it Painter's Mill because I saw Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons about 100 yards over that way. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I have Raven scratch-offs to give away. We have a lucky batch giving away a whole bunch here at the bar, here at Mama's on the Half Shell. Hopefully we've got some lucky folks. Also our friends at Jiffy Lube Multicare. You know, I don't come to Owings Mills as much anymore with the Ravens situation being the way it is with me. But Luke's here all the time, and that's powered up by Jiffy Lube Multicare. And I would drag him over here today, but I don't want to talk Ravens because I got Finn McCusker here. For your dad today, I've gone old school. First off, I got my Skipjack stuff on. We're going to be honoring Jeff Amder, super fan of the Baltimore Skipjacks and hockey in Baltimore. Don't tell Hump and Howie, but I've even brought the Baltimore Skipjacks pennant that I bought out on the street in the middle of the Oyster Tour last month. I bought this in Hamden, Hun, right up on the avenue. I was having, I had a great oyster there. I had an oyster fritter that was an oyster Benedict on French toast. It was good. And I was outside. It was at the Urban Oyster. So 26 oysters, 26 days, 26 ways, all for the Oyster Recovery Partnership. That's all brought to you by Curio Wellness and Foreign Daughter, as well as Liberty Pure Solutions, keeping my water clean at 1-800-CLEAN-WATER. Now, last month, the Oyster Recovery Partnership had an incredible event called The World Is Your Oyster. I didn't get the name of it right. I kept messing it up on the ear. The World Is Your Oyster. And this young man, youngster, I looked at him and I saw Scunny's face to some degree, but he's wearing the Nacho Mama's on the Half Shell thing. And I said, dude, I got to have an oyster with this guy because I knew your dad. So I am just delighted to be out here. Dude, it's a classy place, man. I don't know, man. Scunny might look at this and say, this place is too classed up, man. They don't play Journey in here at 10 o'clock, right?
It's a little too fancy for him, if I'd say.
Well, right. I mean, it is kind of fancy. First off, thanks, man. Thanks for having an oyster.
Pleasure to be here.
I purposely just sort of set up, talked to you briefly, but I've been looking at the people in here and looking at the menu and looking at the vibe. I moved around. There's like a fireplace in the back. There's like cubbies back here that are like romantic, nice, you know. You couldn't do this in a row house.
Not at all.
In Canton. This is a different. What do I tell my wife? Because I don't think I didn't know what to expect.
It's a little more uplifted than the original location down in Canton, that's for sure. So anyone who comes around here, they definitely compare it down there. Like, it's a whole lot different than the other one. So we love it a little more uplifted.
Well, just soup to nuts. I mean, let's just start with this. Anybody that knew Scunny, you're Scunny's kid. I knew Scunny when he met your mother. I was at his bachelor party, parts of the bachelor party in Indianapolis on my birthday, October 14th, 1996. So they got married sometime October, November of 96, I guess, right? So that's when the Ravens came to town. When did you enter the earth?
June 14th, 2000.
June 4th. I'm trying to think of where I am. June 14th, 2000. So just in time for the Ravens to win the Super Bowl.
Just in time. My dad was at the Super Bowl. My mom was home with me alone.
All right. Well, I probably have a picture of your dad and I at – oh, I do. I have a picture. Your dad attended my party at Whiskey Joe's on Super Bowl Sunday dressed as Elvis.
Of course.
Right. So I have a picture of him doing the fat Elvis, as he would say. But your dad would – I'm missing a finger, and Scunny was missing a finger. And he would never let me, and again, so I didn't hang in Mama's, first things first. It was sort of a newish thing for your dad. I hung in the Nacho Mama's in Canton. There was no Towson. I hang there now and get the burrito quesadilla. Ask anybody that's seen me in there, slopping it all up, taking the salsa home and the chips and the fresh guac. But your dad, your father was quirky. Can we say that?
There's a word for it. I don't know if quirky's the one. But
Eccentric.
There's a word out there.
Eccentric would be the word. Iconoclastic is the word I would, use at this point. But he was missing a finger too. And amidst all of the, as I would say to your mother or him, all of the stolen memorabilia that was all over Nacho Mama's from 33rd Street and Colt stuff and horse racing stuff and certainly Natty Bo stuff and Velvet Elvis's, your dad would always, when I was leaving, and he always had like a helper who was a special needs young man.
Robert
was his dude, right?
He was a good one. He told me plenty of stories.
He
He's
loved
come to the house,
Robert.
hang out all the time.
He loved Robert, right? But he would always say to me, "We got to touch nubs. Let's touch nubs." So, your dad was always about touching nubs with my finger. And nobody's allowed to touch my finger. My wife isn't allowed to touch my finger. So, but my love for your father and his passing, and I guess I remember I was in Moncton, New Brunswick when we lost your dad that weekend, and I was seeing Bruce Springsteen. And it was right before the Ravens won the second Super Bowl. It was in that sweet spot in September. And, from the business standpoint, what you guys have done, Towson, trying to branch out, and I've done the show I haven't done the show at Nacho Mama's in Canton because it's so small that I don't know where to set up.
Not enough room, that's for
and
sure.
I came out here, and I'm like, well, there's some room, there's some real estate, going out here. I did this show at your place a couple years ago, looking into the mirror at the end of the bar. Like, we set up on the mirror, and we talked into the mirror, and it was perfect because the bar is so long and sexy there. But your dad's vision for that, I remember him taking me in there when it was messy in a construction scene and say, "This is where the Raw Bar is going to be. Come, walk with me. Walk." And he was always over there taking the trash out in the alley and doing the stuff on the side where the little door was. But he had this vision of, like, seafood, right? Like, that was his deal, even though he was a pizza shop dude that slung tacos and beer, right? Like, and Baltimore memorabilia. But he had this vision for a different kind of brand, right?
Definitely. It was a lot of time, him and my mother took trips to Boston, to New Orleans. They really tried to get that kind of New Orleans theme into there, bring it to Baltimore. And it was definitely a different thing for Baltimore that no one really had in there. It was one of the first Raw bars in the area, and then it branched off from there and turned into the brand it is today.
Well, it was long and skinny, and it had the upstairs. The first year you opened, on Mother's Day, I took my mother in when she was alive. I know I have pictures of my family in your place when it first opened up. But then how long, a dozen years there before you came to here?
To Owings Mills?
Yeah.
Owings Mills actually opened last year.
So 23.
20 years, yep.
So it's 20 years
20
ago
years.
that the half shell opened,
Yes,
03.
Sir. Yep.
Wow, I'm old. Finn McCusker's here. We're doing the Maryland Crab Cake Tour brought to you by the Maryland Lottery. I've been giving these things out, and I'm just trying to storytell a little bit because I'm trying to get caught up because I don't know that I ever met you, or maybe as a little boy you're running around down there at some point, but I was never there at a point where, like, you probably would have been running around. Sometimes it's hard enough to catch Scunny, right? When he was running around down there with 2 stores, actually 3 if the pizza shop as well, right? So, but he was ubiquitous there in the 90s when I was building my business, and Amici's was next door. And, Bill Larney and Steve LaTrenta attended my wedding in 2003 when they were opening Looney's, and now that's an empire and lunacy and all that stuff. You have a different vision. Dad's been gone a period of time now. This is you and your family's vision, right? Like, I would think in some ways you're thinking, what would Dad like? But in some ways he's like, look at the garage door over there. He never would have thought about that. Couldn't have done that in Canton, But your dad was a visionary along with the late, great Mike Clark. We just lost him across the street over at Clada. But all the things that your dad did on the square about championing Canton and Santa Claus and just Elvis, all that goofy stuff. This is like a totally different vibe, and he's gone, and this is your thing now, right?
Yes, sir. I give 99% of the credit to my mother. She puts it all on her back, does more work than anybody I know behind the scenes that no one sees. She had the vision for this place. They live right across the street, actually, really close by. She would always drive by, always see the foot traffic, and she knew that this was the place she wanted. It turned out to be the old Bar Louie that was here a good while ago. Once it went up, they were the first ones to jump on, and it took a year or so to get the construction here. There was no second floor. It was completely revamped.
I still think of this as a really new complex.
100%.
The Wegmans here, and I don't even know all of the shops here. And I said to you, you weren't the Italian place that was next door, because I had come to the medical side here of Lifebridge, and we're right by Painter's Mill. We're right at Reisterstown Road. If you don't know, I'll be honest with you. I told a couple people I'm doing the show at Mama's in Owings Mills. Are like, I didn't know they had an Owings. You know what I mean?
Not a lot of people do nowadays.
Yeah, and that's the thing about it, is that this is a different setup if you're craving your food than parking in Canton. And I'm not encouraging anybody not to go to the city. I'm a city guy. But I do think sometimes when it comes to Nacho Mamas, as an example for me, and like I don't have to, We'll be here a little while, but like I don't have to tell you how much I like your salsa's in my refrigerator right now. And it doesn't keep long enough. That's why it tastes good, because it doesn't have like preservatives and stuff in it. I think it's bad, but honestly, because it was like 10 days ago I went to Nachos. But I love your brand. I loved your dad. I love, my wife and I, the night we were engaged, I asked her to marry me on Federal Hill in April of 2000. It was a cold night. One knee, bench, the whole deal underneath the cannons. And when we got back to the car, a little shivery, we were supposed to go to an Oriole Red Sox game. And Pedro was pitching. It's 2003. And it was kind of cold to be at a ballpark, and we were feeling kind of like celebratory. And this wasn't the time where you could even send a text to anybody, right? Like, so we're getting engaged. We want to tell somebody. Your dad was the first human we told.
Of course.
That we got engaged. We didn't even tell our families. Like, we went in, and he happened to be there. I sat in the third booth.
Yep.
We had little stubby natty bows because he insisted.
I was going to say, that was probably the first thing he handed you.
Absolutely. He refused to let me pay for it, although I paid for everything else. But yeah, like, I mean, it's an iconic part of, like, my story. And even then, I would say, do we want to go over to Nachos today parking? Because I lived at the harbor. So we would take a hearty walk sometimes to Canton, to the square. I mean, we didn't have any problem walking. That was much more my preferred when I lived downtown.
Definitely.
Now I go to Towson all the time. I mean, I don't know. I've lived in Towson almost 3 years now. I've been in Nacho Mama's 50 times in 3 years probably. You know what I mean?
Of course.
I still prefer my own margaritas, but I mean, everybody likes to but I can't, some of the recipes are your dad's, and those I can't shake, and some of them aren't. And those I look and I say, well, I preferred the old thing, or, hey, that new thing I dig. Like, Berea quesadilla would blow your dad's mind.
He would have no idea where to start with that one, that's for sure.
Dude, that's like one of the best things in the city, I think.
I get it about 2 or 3 times a week down there.
You get the quesadilla?
Berea quesadilla every single time.
Yeah, I got it on the nachos once, and I'm like,
Nope.
This belongs on a sloppy Mexican pizza. Is what this belongs. It needs to be dipped. It needs to be, and like we see Birria, and people mispronounce it, or they don't say Berea. Fine, okay, now you know how to say it. We go to other places, and it's on menus now. Like, it wasn't 10 years ago. You didn't see Berea. No. Basically, it's just a big sloppy Mexican pot roast. It's just delicious.
All the juice is flowing out of it.
Just deliciousness. And it came recommended. Your head bartender over there for a long time. We used to watch Oriole games together. Recommended. He said, "Yeah, you got to try this." And I got it. And you didn't even have it on the menu in Canton, right?
No, it started in Towson, then made its way down to Canton.
It did it? It's on there now.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
all right.
I've been down there for a little while.
Because it's so good. Like, so good. But I was doing the crab cake tour, and I fell in love with the quesadilla, the Berea quesadilla. And I'm thinking, man, you should put that on the menu out here at Mama's on the Half Show. But you have a whole different thing here, man,
of
right?
Course.
So the grown-up part of the menu here, because I wasn't as familiar with Mama's, from what your father's vision was to where you are at this point, it doesn't feel far from New Orleans Bistro and just seafood, oysters. I mean, the oyster tour is what brought us together, right?
Of course. Yeah, the menu itself, I mean, it's vast. It has a lot of options, I'd say. We love to give everybody as many options as they can. We have a very diverse menu. You're talking seafood, steaks, anything you guys want. The soft shell crab BLT has been our hit recently. That's kind of new to our menu.
Soft shell crab BLT. You put bacon on that?
Oh, yeah.
See, to me, that's the thing about a soft shell crab, is when it's crispy, like my mom would say. It has a bacony kind of thing,
you know? And we also put it on our, we have a cream of crab soup that we'll put a big soft shell crab right on top. That's been a huge hit here as well.
I'm really hungry. I mean, I had breakfast this morning, and, I came over here open heart. I didn't Google anything. I put a little picture up this morning because we lost our guest. Mike Warren, love you. We'll get you back out. My buddy Howard Scher's going to be coming out a little later on to talk about Skip Jackson. We're going to BS today. It's the Maryland Crab Cake Tour. It's what we do around here. Besides, we do enough Ravens during the week, and we'll be doing plenty of Orioles. You're you're baseballed up, right?
Oh, yeah. Love baseball.
Yeah,
any Baltimore sports, I'm in it.
Well, let's get back to the menu here, because I see grilled oysters, and, like, my eyes – the reason I did the oyster tour is a year and a half ago, I'm at Fadley's, and Damie likes to just bring me food like I'm a horse, like I'm grazing. She's a mother. She's a baseball mother. She's the daughter of, Nancy, who serves people. So when I'm at the old Lexington Market, now the new one's even sexy and Gucci like this. It's awesome. We'll be back down there in a couple weeks. Order some crab cakes. But the amazing part for me is one day she brought a little basket because they serve their food in the little paper baskets down at Lexington Market, and she brought me fried oyster. And I started eating it, like, just when we're doing the show. She said, try this. And she put it in front of me with, like, a guest. And I'm like, what is that? She said, it's fried oyster. So I had it. I'm like, man, that's like fried chicken, only better. What is that? And then she got me some cocktail. And I'm like, okay, coolio, right, I'm into it. And I just thought, why have I never had a fried oyster? I don't think I ever had a fried oyster in my life.
Really?
Well, part of it is it's further down the menu.
Of course, yeah.
Right?
Your eyes catch the first thing you see.
Well, it's not only that. Like, I came in here a little while ago, and I am hungry. The lobster roll looked to me like I haven't had one in a while. Mm-hmm. The tenderloin, I love a French dip, and it looks like you're featuring it. It looks like it would be good here. Mm-hmm. This looks like a French dip place to me, or a French onion soup place. So but I love tuna tartare, but not feeling it today so much. I've done a lot of oysters lately, but none in the last 2 or 3 weeks after doing one every day. Mm-hmm. But the grilled oysters, I didn't have enough grilled oysters last month, mm-hmm. and I did that between that fried oyster a year and a half ago, and then Damie tries to educate me because I'm a knucklehead. And she said, you do know, without the oysters, there'd be no crabs. There'd be no crab cakes. They keep the bay clean. That's how the crabs live. And I'm like, well, and they taste good, you know?
Course.
So I've had them raw all of my life, mm-hmm. right? Like
same for me ever since I was
always
a little kid.
With cocktail, always at a bull and oyster roast, always at a thingy thing, like I was with the wingding thing where somebody's shucking at a Maritime Magic or a charity, like all my life. So when they come to me, I eat them. I am sponsored by Costas and places where there's just oysters out the door whenever I want them, you know. I get the shrimp. I get the crab. I get the crab imperial. I get a steak. I get chicken. I get a guido sometimes when I'm in Costas because they're Greek and it's still. I get a Greek salad. I do a lot of things, but I don't think oyster. And I'm seeing Clams Casino. I never think clams. That's further even down.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I don't dislike them.
Mm-hmm.
Mussels probably ahead of oysters for me. Mm-hmm. If I see a Thai mussel thing, going on, I probably would be more inclined. I've ordered more mussels in my life than I have oysters being out. So this oyster discovery, which led me to you, another gift that came to me, right, began a year and a half ago. And Damie started educating. She's like, you should do this for the oyster recovery because it's part of crab cakes and it'll extend what you're doing. And I was going to do 25 oysters, 25 days last summer for our 25th anniversary. I didn't. I got tied up with a lot of different things. And I said, well, I'll do 26 this year. So I did last month. And I moved all around, and I tried to get a different kind of oyster. So I think we're on the website, we're on day 9, 10, 11. By the way, a good public service announcement. My longtime executive producer, Ray Bachman, is battling cancer. He's doing okay. He was my day 6 at Mike's in Riva, and I think I had some sort of steamed. I don't even know what I had that day. But I had different oysters every day, and I have memorable this fritter I had. I went into the Federal House in Annapolis. They were right next to you at the oyster recovery with crab ceviche. Mm-hmm. Did you have any of that?
I did. It was amazing.
I mean, I went down to Annapolis and had this. So I'm having oysters in new ways. But the grilled oyster, the first time I ever had a grilled oyster was in New Orleans. It was Super Bowl week. It was at the media party, and it was a wing-ding thing. It was, different kind of foods and people putting out jambalaya. All the restaurants were showing off. If there was a Super Bowl here, you'd want to come show something off, right? And they were literally grilling. They had a pit. Mm-hmm. And they were, and you could smell it in the fire. And it was an outside huge party for thousands of media people, right? And I had never had that buttery, heated, grilled.
It's a different experience.
And it was so unbelievable that 2 nights later I went to, was it Drago's or whatever, the place down there that does it in the basement of the Hilton or whatever, and they're $50 and let's go, give them to me, And I ate them. But I came home and I'm like, this is the best thing I ever had. Never ordered them again.
Of course.
And I'll be really honest with you, a month into this oyster tour, I've only had one batch of them, and I had it on the Cooper's truck during the Oyster Festival down in Fells Point. And my wife and I had like 5 of them. We were going to dinner with Marvin Lewis. We couldn't like moo out. And we're on the oyster tour. So I'm like, I don't need more oysters. It's day 15 of the oyster. You know, like, I don't need more. But Patrick, they were good, dude.
Patrick knows how to make good
man,
oysters.
dude, they were good, man. Yeah. So I got to get back down to Fells Point and do that. So when I saw grilled oyster, I'm thinking, is that what I'm getting?
We can bring them out, that's for sure.
Dude, I think I'm going to get those in the next segment because I want to do them your way, however you do them. But I had oyster shooters 2 different times with vodka, 1 time with tequila with my buddy John Allen and Stone Horses. I mean, it got me out to, like, trying different weird stuff,
There's
you
so
know?
many different ways to try an oyster no one knows about.
Well, when I went to the bathroom on the way here, and I'm, like, finding my way and I'm weaving my way, I almost walked into the fireplace thinking it was the bathroom, right? I'm not the only one that does that.
Oh, it's the same way in Canton. No one knows where the bathroom is.
And there were people back here at, 12:30 on a Friday. They had a big-ass tray. The thing I get the hubcap out of over at Nacho Mama's with the straws, But they had, they were just gooping out the horseradish, and I'm like, it's been a couple weeks since I had an oyster. Now I'm hankering it. And I think if this tour's done anything for me, when I'm in a place, I'm much more inclined to maybe order it.
Definitely.
I love Rockefeller. So, I mean, that would be it. I have ordered oysters Rockefeller once or twice a year at Costa's different plate. They have a beautiful spinach they do over there. It's a really unique spinach. So I love it over there. But again, I'm more likely to get the fried shrimp. I'm more likely to get something else. What do you love? What's your favorite oyster?
My favorite oyster I'm more of a raw oyster kind of guy. My dad had me in the bar. He was having bets with his buddies to see how fast I could eat oysters.
How old were you when you shucked your first one?
Probably 5 or 6 with him.
Glove, yeah, the whole deal, right?
That was with my father, so safety was not the high priority. I'm sorry if my mom's hearing this. But
you knew your father. See,
yeah,
okay, I knew. Because I tell secrets about your dad, but ain't nothing I'm going to tell you don't already know. So.
Of course, yeah. It's weird to spend. Now I've lived half my life without him, so a lot of stuff I love getting memories from old friends, same we are doing now, so it means the world to me.
Well, when I met you that night at the recovery, and we were talking, I think we were talking oysters or whatever, I looked at you and I'm like, you look like Scunny. You must be his kid, right? And what were you doing that night?
Chucking. We had oyster chowder that evening.
You had chowder, right?
Yep.
Okay, because you weren't shucking raw. Because
no.
I wasn't in, dude. All offense, and I invited Paul Shurik from Oyster Recovery Partnership to come by today and promote the Oyster Recovery. It was a beautiful event. I was oystered out by the time I got there.
Oh yeah.
And I wasn't hungry the night I was there. And I feel terrible because there were like 6 or 7 oyster harvesters there, right?
Yeah.
Like literally just pulling them out of the box. They were in the water that day and showing off their oysters. And I just was not like, and in most cases, no horseradish, no
just raw,
the way Bourdain would be out in the water eating them, And I just wasn't in the mood that night. So I don't know. I mean, I did have your chowder a little bit. I had a little wing and ding with everything. But so yours, Rockefeller, you do the spinach here, right?
We do the spinach. We do the Rockefeller. Our grilled oysters, we always tell everybody to do the 2, 2, and 2. We have Parmesan herb, smoked paprika, and horseradish crust. Personally, I'm not much of a horseradish
I'm going to have
guy.
a 2, 2, and 2.
Yeah, you have to do that.
Management advised me to do that, right?
Of course.
So that's what I need to do.
Yep.
For you with the seafood part of this and being a Maryland guy, your dad was an Ocean City thing. I am blown away as I get out to an oyster tour, how vital the Bay is, right, and what a part it is. And then you obviously know because I met you at the Oyster Recovery Partnership. Yep. So talk about that a little bit and that involvement because that wasn't something your dad was doing at Nacho Mama's when he's slinging quesadillas, right?
No, not at all. I mean, preservation of the Bay is one of the biggest things we have going for us right now. The amount of all the bad stuff that goes in the Bay, what the ORP does to actually save the Bay. Every oyster, like they were saying at the YO event, they've put enough oysters in the Bay to fill up all of M&T Bank Stadium. To think about that in perspective, I mean, you can't compare that to anything.
The numbers, because I came in the side door at that event, and I would tell, if Paul were here, I'd tell him, so you represent him. You already have pretty well. I came in the side door, and I got there early, and I was going to set up, and then I realized it wasn't a great place to set up because people were busy. This is a better environment to have you on my show than to grab you at 5 o'clock when in the event, right? And the event had music. It wasn't that kind of an event. It was an event I should have been out doing 5 of these at 5 places to promote it the month before. And people should, please, the Oyster Recovery Partnership, next year, come to that event. It's down at the B&O Railroad Museum, indoor, outdoor. But the bathroom was inside. And I had been outside and Donnie McCafferty, and by the way, Donnie McCafferty, a plug for my sponsors over at Beaumont. I wore this for him and for you and for your dad. This is my Baltimore Colts belt buckle. That would have.
Oh, my
So your
Lord.
dad would love that one, right? This is my original.
Ripped it off your belt.
This would have been another stolen item at Nacho Mama's. I gave both of the Ursay dummies are from me and via Rasig. Rasig is yours, but the back dummy. You didn't even know the dummy story, right? That Rasig was the guy.
No, that's the first time you told me actually.
So Donnie McCafferty, I should give him some love because this is his grandfather was the coach of Super Bowl V when we won. And this is literally a 1971 belt. It says right on it. So this was the Super Bowl V era of his grandfather. He is the manager at the Beaumont where I go and knock down a steak in Catonsville from time to time as well. And hold on, put this thing back on here. Get this thing rocking. Oh, there we go. So what's that? I was on the Colts thing. I lost my train of thought. My goodness gracious me, oh my! See, I started telling Donnie McCafferty stories. He was getting me cranked up at this oyster recovery because Beaumont and State Fair, and he had this little jug that sort of Pete Arnold Palmer's. You know what I mean? Like it had vodka and iced tea, and he kept giving them to me, and I had to go to the bathroom. So I go inside at the Oyster Recovery Partnership at the B&O, and I love the B&O, big, spacious circle room. But when I came back into the party, all of the signs were oyster, like it was the front door, obviously, right? So the first thing you saw when you went to the Oyster Recovery Partnership were these huge signs, and I stopped and read every one of them. It was like billions and billions.
You can't even comprehend the amount of oysters.
And understanding, and I had James Bond on from Living Classrooms Foundation. I had Damie on at the beginning of this whole thing last month. Please go watch that if you really want to be educated. James Bond knew so much about oysters. So Damie, obviously, right? But apparently, like, the harbor was just one big giant oyster, like literally 100 years ago, right? Like, that's what made the harbor. The harbor were the oyster beds, and it became so over-harvested that it just sort of all went away. Yep. Then it became muddy, that, you know, less than marshy, less than ideal for any wildlife, right? So all the things that the aquarium does down there, and the fact that I wasn't going to be the first one that jumped in the harbor. You know, your old man.
He probably would have right away. he kayaked starting in the harbor down to Ocean City.
Did he really do that?
Multiple times.
I thought that was I thought that was like when I went to Dundalk High and they told me there was a pool on the third floor and there wasn't.
No, that was all true stories. You could track him. I remember being in, probably 7th or 8th grade, being able to track him where he was going all across the river. He was one of the.
I thought this would be like him, like Santa Claus. Like I thought this was like not a real thing.
Oh no, he did it multiple times. He did a handful of them going to. He started in Ocean City sometimes, started in Baltimore.
I went into Nacho Mama's, and he said he was going to get in a kayak in the harbor and get to Ocean City, and I'm like, I did the math on that. I've been out on big boats in the Chesapeake. Like, that's not.
No, it's not easy, and the best part was it was all raising money for the Believe in Tomorrow Foundation at the Children's House, so that was the main priority of all of that. And in my opinion, it was a race between bars. They had all the bars.
How long did he take?
It took about a week. It's been a while, so I'd probably say anywhere from like 7 to 9 days I think it took him to get over there, and he was actually the only person in the crew who brought a tent with them. Everyone else slept on a big comfy boat behind him. He was in the woods sleeping in a tent.
When my wife finds out that really happened, because she knew Scunny, right? I mean, because we have talked about that as being like an unbelievable story that he told that was a tall tale.
Of course, yeah. Like I said,
that's real. That's a real part of the legacy.
It's real. I think it was just a race between bars. It was a little pissing contest between all the bars, and I couldn't imagine how much booze they had to fit in their kayaks, to be honest.
Well, you know, we're here. We're Mama's on the half shell. Sandwiches started. Well, it's lunchtime here. Some folks are getting some libations at the bar. You're trying to interest me in some oysters and stuff.
Of course.
But learning about oysters and the Oyster Recovery Partnership, it's what led me to the party that night. It's what's led me here. The Maryland Lottery sends me out and leads me places to give Raven scratch-offs away. Hopefully I had a lucky batch here. Our friends at Liberty Pure Solutions have us out, along with Curio, doing 26 oysters in 26 days, 26 ways. And I'm past it now, and this is going to be my first oyster since I had 26 oysters in 26 days in 26 ways. And I'm going to go for 2 for 2. So that 222, that's Parmesan herb, smoked paprika butter. I'm going to like that one the best. And horseradish crust. I ain't never had that.
Like I said, I'm not as big of a horseradish guy, so I'm more of the 3 and 3. But I always tell everybody to recommend the 2, 2, and 2. That way you get a little Everything.
Does that got to kick, that horse rag? Going to open my sinuses up?
It'll open you up quick.
All right, maybe I get a beverage. I mean, maybe I get a natty bow to honor Dad out here. We're out here with Finn McCusker. He is the son of Scunny, who we lost about a dozen years ago, but they've just opened this beautiful space. We're in Foundry Row, Painter's Mill, hon. Back in one of the first concerts I ever saw was Frankie Valli and the Four Seasons right over here at Painter's Mill Music Theater. I always wanted to see Liberace. They wouldn't take me out to see him back in the 70s. But and I saw Crack the Sky there once, but that was the only 2 times I was ever there. I missed the Pretenders and the Police and Alice Cooper. There were a whole bunch of shows, Golden Earring, that happened in my childhood out here. But it is a beautiful area. You got people walking by. It's an outdoor space. You got a garage door here. So you open up in the summer? Is that the idea?
So that garage door we keep shut. We actually have an oyster bar right there that has a garage door and an outside bar on the patio. We'll lift that up.
You have a patio. You have an outdoor patio.
Yes, sir.
I got to get to know the space. It's more than a row house, right? So my wife's going to be like, my goodness, look at this big thing going on out here. We're at Owings Mills. We're going to continue on. Our friends at Jiffy Lube Multicare getting Luke back and forth. I say Owings Mills like 100 times a week because it's where Luke goes to cover the Ravens. We're in Owings Mills. Ravens are that way. The stadium's that way. We're hoping for good things again this week from the Ravens. Full-time World Series coverage around here this week, as well as getting ready for the election next week. I've got a lot of really cool people on. Josh Kurtz is coming on. Pam Wood's coming on from the Baltimore Banner to talk about the Senate race, talk about America, the beautiful, and what a week ahead. But in the meantime, if we go down, I'm going down with grilled oysters at Mama's on the half shell. We're out here. Hey, man, last supper for me winds up being this soft shell crab BLT. That really sounds good, too. See, that's the thing about the fried oysters. You looked at me like I had 2 heads when I said I'd never had fried oysters. I would not get an oyster po' boy. I would get a shrimp po' boy, right?
Of course. Yep.
So that's why I never go in that direction. But I'm going to go in that direction today because we're still celebrating oysters here. The month still has an R. November has an R, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll still have.
We're good.
That's not. Is that a fallacy? Do you do oysters 12 months or?
We do oysters 12 months out here. Depends on where you get them. You can get them from all the way up to PEI up in Canada, get them down to Virginia.
Don't ask me my PEI story. It involves the weekend your dad passed, and it would make your father laugh, so I'm going to tell it to you. Because you said PEI. I told this story a little while ago. It's a hockey story, too. Mm-hmm. So I'm wearing hockey stuff. So maybe I should tell it. Because it involves Prince Edward Island. It involves oysters. And your father was a famous cheapskate. I'm not telling you that.
Oh, I know it.
It involves me being a cheapskate. So we're going to have fun. Finn's out here. We're out at Mama's on the Half Shell. It's all brought to you by the Maryland Lottery and Jiffy Lube Multicare. You think I'm ready to tell hockey stories today, man? I got my Skipjacks gear on. We're going to honor Jeff Amder. Howard Scher is going to be here. We're going to talk some Skipjacks. Too bad I couldn't get Barry Trotz or Dougie McLean to call in live via satellite, but they're here in spirit with my Skipjacks jersey. Back for more. We're WNST AM 1570, Towson, Baltimore. We never stop talking Baltimore, positive and oysters, and I didn't even mention a crab cake, and it's the freaking crab cake tour.